You're listening to Trailblazers.fm, an interview-styled podcast that delves deep into bold conversations with successful Black entrepreneurs and leaders. Join us weekly to learn actionable strategies, valuable tactics, and innovative tools that you can put to use immediately on your journey to blazing your trail. And now, here's your host, my husband, Stephen A. Hart.
Blazer Nation, hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Stephen A. Hart. I'm the host of Trailblazers.fm. If this is your first time joining one of our live broadcasts, I'm so very happy that you made a decision to join us through Trailblazers.fm, which was launched back in February of 2016, fast approaching our 6th year anniversary. We've had the privilege and the blessing to have bold conversations with over 250 Black entrepreneurs and leaders. And so today is no different. I'm very excited to be joined by Jerich Beason. Jerich is the SVP and CISO at Epic. And he is just an amazing brother that I had a chance to meet through SANS. And so without further delay, Jerich, welcome to the show, my brother.
How's it going, man? I'm happy to have an opportunity to share the mic with you.
Yes. So on a Friday morning, a week before Thanksgiving here in the US, I wanted to start things off and maybe have you reflect on an unexpected blessing that you're most grateful for in your life right now.
You know, it's funny that you asked that. I've recently got into doing a gratitude journal.
Yeah.
I find that it makes me more centered and happy throughout the day. And one of the things I've settled on more recently is I'm so happy for the valleys that I've had. I think we always look for the mountaintops, but the valleys are where you really develop and you grow. The nutrients and all the minerals, and if you look at it, you know, in a geographical type of way, it's all in the valley, and that's where you develop so that when you get to that mountaintop, and so that you can get to the mountaintop. So I think about all the things that were challenges and tribulations, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for those. As hard as they were, they've shaped and they've formed and they've helped me become the man I am. So that's what I'm most grateful for, is the hard times.
I love it, man. I appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I am a reformed geek, I like to say. I spent my entire career in cybersecurity. I've always been passionate about technology. I started cybersecurity before cybersecurity was a career.
Yeah.
I spent time working for the government, specifically Lockheed Martin. I was responsible for protecting the nation's nuclear secrets in Nevada. I spent some time at a product company, RSA. They were the largest product company at the time. I led professional services there. I spent some time at Deloitte, worked my way up to one level under partner, saw the life of a partner, realized I did not want that life, and made the move over to industry. I went over to a Fortune 200 architecture engineering firm. I spent some time as the deputy CISO there, and now here I am at Epic as the CISO, and I'm loving it.
Wow. That's awesome, man. I did see that you have multiple degrees in cybersecurity and you've pretty much always been a part of the space. Why is that? Like, what inspired your interest in tech and cybersecurity?
You know, my dad brought home a computer when I was 5. He always jokes that I showed him how to use Paint before he even knew anything about it. And that was the first thing I did. I think I was 5 or 6 years old playing with Paint. And then I got into Adobe Photoshop. And then when I was in high school, I joined an organization, given that this is a podcast for ethnic people. I haven't talked about this much, but I joined an organization called BDPA, which stands for Black Data Processing and Associates. And I was in high school and we did computer programming competitions. So I traveled the country competing with other Black high school students doing computer programming challenges. And that's when I really honed in my passion. And then I took some of those skills and I turned them towards some, I'll call them nefarious activities and mischievous things as a kid, and found that I could get into computers I probably shouldn't get into. And that's where my love and my passion for security was born.
Mm. Who is somebody that comes to mind that's had maybe a tremendous impact on you rising within the space and then becoming a leader?
There's so many names, but I think the person that really started it was my boss at Lockheed Martin. I started off as a senior security analyst at Lockheed and quickly moved up to run the security organization. Never thought that I was going to be ready for it. Never thought that I had the capacity to do something. And he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And he put me in a position to fail and succeed. And fortunately, I did a little bit of both. And that's what kind of started off my leadership journey. And as a leader, at the time I was 23 years old and I was leading people that were 3 times my age. Wow. And the fact that he saw enough in me to do that gave me a level of confidence that I never had in myself. And I've kind of rode that wave ever since.
Wow. So, today I was interested in us kind of having this discussion around your life at the intersection of being a Black man, a millennial, and a cybersecurity leader. I think it's a really interesting place for anyone in tech, really. A person of color in tech, especially a Black person of color in tech. But you have this interesting mashup, right? And for those who are not in cybersecurity, but can imagine, the numbers are the percentages are relatively low. For Black cyber practitioners, period, I think. And I imagine those percentages are probably even lower when we look at leadership within the industry. I've seen some things published recently on Black women in cyber. Do you have any idea on the percentages of Black leaders, particularly Black men?
I haven't seen a statistic on Black leaders. I will say that Black men do outnumber Black women. Yeah. And that's really for one primary reason. And it's changed a little bit over the past few years. But most Black people, let's say maybe 10 years back, that got into the security field, got in through the military. And they were in the military, they took the test, they were assigned to some type of assurance or intelligence or IT role. And that is where their security career began. And then they took it into the civilian market. More so recently, we're seeing more people getting into the field because, and I've said this before, but if you are an intelligent Black person, you were told to be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. That is your path to success in a white collar world, right? I mean, there's also athlete and actress and all those things, but specifically in a white collar world, that is where you're told to focus your time and your efforts if you want to be successful. So people don't even think about the tech field. You had to be a geek or you had to have 4 eyes, which I have. So it kind of worked out in my favor to want to pursue a field like that. And to be honest, it wasn't popular. I mean, imagine being a high schooler in the 90s and 2000s and saying, I'm going to this computer programming competition. That's not cool. The girls don't like that. The jocks don't like that. You're kind of a pariah. It's changed a little bit now with, just the burst of technology. But at the time, it wasn't a popular thing to do.
Yeah. Bridget, I thought it was just a Jamaican thing because, in Jamaica, it's like either the lawyer, the doctor, engineer, right?
Yep. Those are the fields. But go ahead.
So I didn't want to really box you into a particular corner on the question, but I'd love for you to maybe share your experiences and insights, right? Sure. On living and working at this intersection that we're talking about with being a Black millennial and a leader in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I think I'd like to separate them because they both have presented their own sets of challenges. Yeah, first being there's a level of ageism in security, and then there's also all the diversity challenges that we faced. But being a Black guy in the field and not having examples I first started, I had earrings in my ears. I had hair on my head, but maybe not the most professional hairstyle. I wore the clothes that weren't necessarily fitting because that's the culture that I came from. I grew up on the south side of LA where you're not seeing professional black men very often. So I saw what I saw and I knew what I knew. My brain had the capacity and the knowledge and the skill set, but the way I presented myself wasn't necessarily that. And it wasn't until I moved to Las Vegas and I was away from that culture that I was able to see how other people moved and how other people operated. And seeing those things kind of helped change a little bit of my career trajectory because I was able to acclimate myself a little bit more. But the reality is I was a black man amongst a lot of white men, not white women, not black women, black men amongst a number of white men. And, I stood out. There's pros and cons to that. One, if you excel and there is no, racism or anything going around you, people actually want to move you up the ladder because they want to show some levels of diversity. It's just they didn't necessarily know who to put in those positions, who they can trust in those positions. So I found that I was able to benefit in many ways because I was black. Where I saw my first set of real challenges was when I became a consultant. I'll never forget. I won't name the company, but I was providing services for an oil and gas company. And I had a team of people and they had me come on site and I get into the room and I'm about 10 minutes early. I said, I'm looking for room A, we'll say. And they said the janitor interviews are down the hall.
What?
And I was like, not looking for the janitor interviews. I'm here for, your risk management program. They're like, well, we're waiting for Jerich. Because mind you, this is before video chat. This is before LinkedIn had people's faces all over or any of that. And Jerich isn't an ethnic name, we'll say, right? It's not, Tyrone or DeAndre. So you can't necessarily tie the name to a race. And I said, that's me. I'm Jerich. And they're like, Jerich Beason? It's like, probably not that many Jericks out there, but yes, I'm Jerich Beason. Jerich Beason from RSA? Yep, Jerich Beason from RSA. And they kind of stepped back and they're like, oh, okay. And then we went on and there were no issues, but they were just so surprised to see me. They had already predetermined who was going to walk through that door, and it wasn't myself. And that's just the way it is. A lot of the time, I found myself, and I don't see this anymore, but I found myself having to prove myself. And I've always questioned, was it my race or my age? Because it could be both, right? I imagine, if I was a completely different race, but a 24-year-old kid walks in that's leading men and women of, ages and generations before, maybe those problems, those challenges still would have existed.
Yeah.
So I keep all of that in consideration. Did I lose you?
No, man, I'm here.
Oh, weird. My computer just went black on me. So I keep all those things kind of in consideration when I think about the way that my career ended up playing out. But honestly, those things made me work harder. Those things made me spend extra time. I went and got pieces of paper and certifications that I maybe wouldn't have thought to get just to make sure that I could prove myself and no one would ever doubt me. So challenges, at the end of the day, it all turned out.
Love that, man. So let's bring it forward maybe to the because we talked about being black and the ageism. I imagine in any industry is a challenge. I'm thinking to my wife who had a similar experience as yours, being a young leader. And I once too had a lot of hair in my early 20s, both ears pierced. And to this day, it's still a very dear friend and mentor of mine. Big ups to Jerry Dinas, but I showed up to work with the earrings, with some big, fake diamonds in the ears. And he was like, hey, you know, what you choose to do at night is cool, but you show up here, we need to keep this out. And he was grooming me for, you know, where I needed to be. And so, and another, you know, white man and a good brother to this day. But, you know, it is good to have those people step up and kind of groom you where you're not in the know.
Absolutely. And if I pivot to the millennial side of things, before I start, let me just ask you a question. When you hear the term millennial, what comes to your mind?
At this point, 30 somethings.
Okay. All right.
30 something. Because I feel like
is there an adjective that you would use to describe a millennial?
Not exactly. No.
That's good. That's good to know. I can tell you that the most people would not necessarily have a positive adjective. It'd be entitled or spoiled or job hopper. And if you look on the media, if you Google millennials are, there is nothing positive after it. There's constant, you know, just negative connotations associated with millennials. And unfortunately for the people that feel that way, more than half of the workforce are millennials these days. And
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And what I found is when I first started into leadership, I realized that I needed to understand people better. So I started to spend a lot of time really diving into people and sociology and the psychology of people, because as a 23-year-old, I'm trying to motivate a 57-year-old. And the things that motivate me don't necessarily motivate them. So it was important for me to understand. And as I dug into it more and more, I started to get into the concept of generational diversity. And, you know, at the time there were baby boomers. The generation before them were on the way out of the workforce. They're also known as the silent generation or the greatest generation. And then there's Gen X, and then there's millennials, and now there's Gen Z. And what I'm learning over time is each one of these generations are motivated differently. They have landmark events that happen in their careers and in their lives that have shaped who they are. They want to be communicated with differently. And I started to learn that I had to treat my workers like pieces on a chessboard and not pieces on a checkers board, right? So in checkers, everybody moves the same way. You do the same things. But in chess, each piece has a different strength and a different weakness, and they move differently. And as I started to develop that and learn that, I was able to lead people differently. And you don't really move up in leadership, especially in security, if you aren't able to influence people and you aren't able to grow people and develop people and motivate people. And if I would have tried to motivate any of these other people the same way I would want to be motivated, I wouldn't be successful. So I've spent a lot of time understanding people, because ultimately that's what leadership is influence over people, and security is a people business over any other business. So that's been my life as a millennial, and then working with other generations.
I find that interesting, Jerich, because I think I've operated in some capacity of that in both my personal and professional life. Even I think into my own marriage, right? When I stepped in and I met my in-laws, or I met you know, other friends who are wired very differently than I am. I'm always, and even at work now, as you said, I embrace the differences. I embrace the common threads, but my ultimate goal is to understand what makes you tick.
Yes.
And how we can function best together. And once I figure out what works for you, your likes and dislikes, we're good. I'm not trying to get you to a certain place or way of thinking. I just want to understand, you know, where you operate best, and we can get along just fine from there.
I agree. I completely agree. If I'm trying to attract, let's say, a 50, 60-year-old person, I'm not leading with diversity and inclusion. Doesn't mean you don't care about it, but that's just not your leading motivator. You know, I'm leading with the things that are going to give you stability, things that can give you comfort that this company will be here 10 years from now,
Mhm.
because people that are in that generation care more about longevity and stability more so than they care about the next opportunity. They don't necessarily care about the environment, and they don't care about those types of things. But if I'm talking to a millennial, I want to give them opportunities for autonomy. I'm going to give them opportunities for contributing to a cause that's greater than themselves, and so on and so on. And this is key to retention as well. A funny story, but a millennial on my team, he took a trip to London to a wedding and decided that he was going to stay out there for another month. He had his computer, he was able to work remotely, and his boss was like, "I'm not okay with this. We need to make sure that he comes back," because he agreed that he would come back. And we'd have a conversation like, "Hey, is this the hill you want to die on? If he's getting his job done, if he's able to work remotely, does it matter where he is, or does it matter what he's doing?"
Mhm.
And that's a conversation that you're not used to having, and it's one that I wouldn't necessarily have to have with other members on my team. But that goes back to the whole chess and checkers thing. If I
Mhm.
treated him in a way that I would have had to treat somebody else, I might lose him as a worker. He may be less motivated. He may not bring his whole self to work,
Yeah.
and that's just not effective. So it's a lot of balance and it's a lot of flexibility. But I've found so far that the results are positive.
And that's the thing, right? That keyword is flexibility. I think we have to embrace that now more than ever before,
Mm.
in a post-COVID digital climate where you're going to have the hybrid of all variations, right? Of some people
Yes.
showing up in the office some of the times, and some people never seeing the light of day of an office setting. I happen to work with Sands, as you know, which is 100% remote company long before COVID. And there are some people that see each other every 6 weeks at a live event, and there are other people that have never attended a Sands event and had the opportunity to meet other people in the organization. And that's real. And I
It
think it's
is.
going to become more mainstream as we move forward.
Even more as we move to the gig economy, where
Yeah,
people don't even have a consistent job.
right. Freelancing. What's your how are you leveraging your seat as a leader within the diversity, equity, and inclusion space?
A few different ways. So at my company, I'm an executive over the Black CRG. So any of the activities, within the Black CRG kind of, I won't say I run them, but I provide all the support, the executive support for them. I weigh in, I make some decisions. The the way that I'm really trying to influence diversity and inclusion is really on a macro level. I use platforms like LinkedIn to get
Mhm.
my message out. Maybe that's a millennial in me. I'm not sure, but I I see diversity and inclusion as a much bigger box than people are making it. I think a lot of time people look at race, creed, gender, sex, sexual orientation, and it's so much more than that. I look at diversity and inclusion as anything that makes us different,
Mm.
right? So a good example in cybersecurity, we could use a lot of single mothers. Single mothers are probably the most resourceful, the most organized
Mhm.
people that are out there, and people are trying to break in. I love that skill set. I
Mhm.
love what they bring to the table. Librarians. Why am I working on documents and keeping up with documents when a librarian who does it all the time can do it? Right. So the background of the people coming into the field is important to me, and I like for it to be diverse. Of course, just diversity of thought comes from diversity of experiences that come into play.
Mhm.
We talk about gender, generational diversity. I look at generational diversity, but then more so than just identifying the types of diversity options and candidates that are out there, I'm also looking at how do we take diverse candidates and extract the value from their diversity. I
Yes.
think DEI today on a larger scale is tolerance. We will bring some in and we will tolerate them more than we've ever tolerated them before. But I don't see people saying, okay, Black person, you've gone through some struggles, you've lived this life, you've experienced these things. How can we take those experiences and make our company better? It's more so, let's put people in positions, let's create a title that says Director of DEI, VP of DEI, Head of DEI, but it's really a shell. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to take the core experiences and the cultures that people bring to the table and apply them in a way that will ultimately help the culture of an organization. But I think it really increases the bottom line at the end of the day, because people are happy and they're truly bringing their whole self to work. I think that's something that we're also missing, is you have code switching where you're one way at work and you're another way. Man, I am the same way at work as I am with my friends. I say, what's up? I say, how's it going? I say, I can dig it, whatever it may be, right? That's who I am. And it doesn't compromise my capabilities. It doesn't compromise my professionalism. I'm not going to say that when I first meet a client, no, but with my team and the people that I've worked with enough, they're getting the whole me. I tell them I'm having a bad day. I tell them, yeah, you know what, my kids are driving me crazy today. Just a heads up. Let me know if you see that come out in my personality, because that's what we're all dealing with. And I find that the more vulnerable I am, the more vulnerable my team is. And I start to hear things and they tell me things that they otherwise wouldn't have told me. And they sometimes have let me know, like, thank you for showing me that it's okay to have flaws. Thank you for showing me that it's okay to have a bad day. I don't have to have a perfect hair day every day. I don't have hair, so I don't have that problem. But there are people like that. And it's just important that leaders demonstrate that. So I guess from a DEI perspective, I just try to embody all the things that I want out of my team. And then I try to spread that message across whatever platforms. And my platform of choice is LinkedIn. And I like to say I'm on a mission to democratize leadership strategies and democratize security strategies. One core leadership strategy is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah. I love it, man. I even sharing your LinkedIn. I'm going to drop that in the comments here, but I'm showing it on the screen for everyone to connect with you. Listen, I know you're active on LinkedIn. I see you on there all the time, liking and engaging. And I can't find you on Twitter, man. What's up with that?
Guilty as charged, kind of. So I created a Twitter. So at one point I said, okay, I'm going to establish a brand. So I created a Twitter, and it's blanket sec. So like blanket and then sec. And it was a late night. My daughter, she always holds on to her blanket. So I was like, I want to be somebody's security blanket. And I was like, oh, there's a play on that with cybersecurity. So I created that account, and then I never used it. I kept seeing people posting on Twitter about the food they were eating and things like that. And I just didn't see where my lane was at the time. And I think I really missed a lot of opportunity to kind of get the message out. But I'm anticipating probably in 2022 picking that back up. I've also been trying to figure out. Say that one more time.
It's still blanket sec.
It's still blanket sec. I think if you type in my name, it's there. And I have 37 followers. I don't know how you guys find me, but I'm cool with it. But I will start to post there more often. But I think I'm going to have a difference in the type of content. So on LinkedIn, it's pure leadership strategies. It's for helping people that are trying to break into the field. I haven't figured out exactly what I want my messaging to be on Twitter, but it'll be a little bit different than what's on LinkedIn. I still want to reach a core audience, but I think the audience on Twitter is a little younger. So I might tailor it to that audience. We'll see.
Got it. Listen, as we wrap up here, I just wanted to ask you two last questions. Or Blazing Nation loves to hear the resources of our featured guests. And so wanting to know, is there any books or that you've read or you're reading right now that you think we should add to our queue?
Yeah, so if anybody is interested in sports or basketball, you've heard of Kobe Bryant, and he has a book called The Mamba Mentality. It's this black one right here. You probably can't read it, but it's called The Mamba Mentality. You don't have to be a basketball fan to appreciate it. He goes into painstaking detail how he was able to operate within his passion. I don't believe you can be successful in security without having a passion for security. And I thought I had a passion for my field, and I read that book and I realized I need to step it up a little bit. And I think that book, it gives a blueprint in many ways on how to walk out your passion. Anything from Stephen Covey, anything from John Maxwell, those are also really powerful books, and I've read pretty much all of them.
I love it. Jerich, I appreciate you being on, man. Last question for you. What's one action that our Blazer Nation can take coming away from this conversation that's going to help them to blaze their trail?
There's a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's from John Wooden. He says, when opportunity knocks, it's too late to prepare. And you hear a lot of people say, you know, that luck is a combination of preparation and opportunity, right? Well, I have found that I've talked to a number of people, I've mentored a number of people, and so many people haven't even had an opportunity to have an interview to break into the jobs that they want, let alone get the job that they want. So I would suggest reach out to somebody. Asking someone to be your mentor, it's a really large task. And though people are honored, they don't necessarily want to take on that large of a task. But if you ask maybe for a 15-minute mock interview, hey, I'm not, you don't have to hire me, anything. I just want to be able to prepare myself. So when I do have that opportunity, I'll be prepared. I'll know what I should say, what I shouldn't say, maybe even look at my resume for me. Try something like that. I've done that for people. I'm thinking about offering it up as a service, maybe on a monthly basis, but try to get opportunities to prepare for that opportunity when it comes.
I love that. I love that. Blazer Nation, make sure you're dropping some hand clap emojis up in the comments right now. Jerich, I appreciate you, my brother. Thank you so much for coming on. You're now part of our Blazer Nation community. I hope to have you back on at a point in the future. So definitely stay in touch. And you and I have some other things we're going to be doing in the near term. So I'm excited about that as well. But listen, enjoy the holidays. Thank you very much. Grateful for, your commitment to the space and all the amazing things you're doing. And listen, everybody go check out the Cyberside Chats podcast. Jerich is actually the host of that podcast, right? So check that out today. Y'all have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Appreciate y'all. I'll talk to you on Monday. God bless.